Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire Up with CJ. Sorry. Sorry. Three, two, one. Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we have Dr. Carolyn Dean, and she is going to be talking to us about bioidentical hormones. And look at the
I am.
oh yes, you are.
And
She
listen to you. Fire it up with CJ. Yes, and you're going to talk about menopause and hot flashes, aren't
Yes,
you?
I am. So, we've had Dr. Dean on the show several times talking about magnesium. She has a new book that just came out in 2017 called The Magnesium Miracle, which is an update. You said double the pages of before. So, wow. So a lot more information about magnesium. We'll have to have you on the show again telling us about magnesium. But today we're going to focus on hormone balance, which is something that I swear I was talking to my nutritionist and she said, "Have you ever heard of Estroven?" And I said, "No, what is that?" And she said, "Well, do you get hot flashes?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, it's something that you should consider." And I swear after she told me about it, the next day I got hot flashes. And I was
I
like,
know the mind is a very useless thing
It
sometimes.
is. I thought, really? So now I'm having hot flashes 2 or 3 times a night where it's just kind of rip off the sheets, put on the covers, freezing back and forth, back and forth. So it's very disruptive to my sleep. Um,
Yeah.
she recommended Estroven, which I guess has black cohosh and a whole bunch of other natural greens. I wanted to just start off there to find out because it seems I read the Amazon reviews and people are saying within 3 days they're having a huge success. I have no idea. I just started taking it 2 days ago. But do you know anything about those natural supplements like Estroven? And there are a couple of them out there, I think.
Oh, there are. When you think of it, CJ, there's 55,000 supplements on the market now.
Wow.
And I want to
Wow.
pull back a bit because what's going on with natural medicine, naturopathic medicine, compared to allopathic medicine is they really have the same philosophy.
Mm.
You have some symptoms, take a pill.
Mm-hmm.
Now the pill can be synthetic, drugs, etc., with incredible side effects, or the pill can be a supplement. And what you're trying to treat is a symptom, which is the downstream reaction of what? I mean, what is causing these symptoms?
Right.
And we can talk about any quote disease symptom. And we will be talking about magnesium because it enters into the picture here. Because
Okay.
when you look at the symptoms of quote menopause or perimenopause, I mean, you even said yourself, well, when the idea came in my head that I could be having hot flashes, it's like, oh, there they were.
Right.
The brain, the mind, the biochemistry, they're so interactive. And that's where when you look at menopausal therapies, they talk about exercise, they talk about meditation and yoga, tai chi, and just your thoughts, prayer, meditation, all these things will lessen the stress on the body. And it's not woo-woo at all.
Mm-hmm.
When you can lessen your stress and your conflict, you take the pressure off your adrenal glands, you stop shooting out adrenaline. And what does the adrenaline do? It uses up your minerals and your vitamins. It uses up mostly magnesium and vitamin C and sodium.
Mm.
So your adrenal glands, they're busy dealing with stress, and then your fourth and fifth decade come along and your hormones are reacting to that, so your estrogen and progesterone will start to diminish. And what do you need to support your ovaries to make estrogen, progesterone? You need your adrenal glands
Mm-hmm.
and you need your thyroid.
Mm.
So we've got to look at that whole picture. I call
Mm.
it a tripod.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're, I mean, what happened to me, I had early menopause in mid 40s because I was so stressed out. I was in New York doing AIDS and chronic fatigue research. And I'd been away from Toronto, Canada, where I practiced for about 3 or 4 years. And all of a sudden, my licensing body in Toronto, even though I no longer had a license in Ontario, Canada, they decided to have some sort of Kafkaesque trial and take away a non-existent license of mine because
Yeah.
I had applied for my license in California. And they said, well, we don't like her. We're going to take. So major stress. My
Right.
adrenals were shot. So what happened? My hormones started to get shot as well. So I developed hot flashes, just like, I mean, I was having them every few minutes at a certain point.
Oh my goodness.
And what happened with mine is I would get this wash over me of impending doom.
Mm.
I thought the sky was falling, everything was just horrible, and what total depression in a
Mm.
second. And 2 seconds, and I felt the full impact of depression for that second.
Mm.
But then the next second, I had the hot flash.
Mm.
And I mean that can be actually that was to me the biochemistry of depression right there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh my gosh, if look at what I just experienced. So I took it as a learning experience, and of course
Right.
I dealt with stress. I worked on what I tell people: detoxify, de-stress, look at your diet. You can use phytoestrogenic plants, like,
Mm-hmm.
red clover,
Mm-hmm.
sprouts, and flax seeds. All this stuff is out there, it's documented. But I do tell people to beware of soy because there's so many people that can't digest it.
Mm.
It does have phytoestrogenic properties. Back to your estrogen, it does have soy isoflavonoids, or isoflavones.
Mm-hmm.
So those have been isolated out of the soy. So it's not like you're trying to digest indigestible soy. Asians do not eat soy.
Mm.
They ferment it. They have little bits of it. Tofu, tiny amounts. They know soy is undigestible. So anyway,
Mm.
that was
Okay,
sidebar.
so I think I think where the sidebar took us is where we last left off when we last spoke about hormones, and which I've done a lot of work on. So I'm hearing that hormone imbalance can be a result of toxins. Hormone imbalance can be a result of incredible stress on the body. Hormone imbalance can also be caused from diet and poor diet. So when you get those things, and in fact, what was interesting, and I think we spoke when we spoke the last time, I had early menopausal symptoms in my 40s, and then I went on I got my diet in order, and I got my period back from so this was like age 42 till now 55. I was able to just
Wow.
through
Yeah.
diet change things around. I mean, it's kind of phenomenal. And then I had, oddly, it seemed to be correlated with this massage because my body, I had my fascia was kind of bound up in this weird way because I have a left leg that is shorter than my right leg, so my body was crossing over and causing the fascia on my organs to bind together. So I had someone do this. It's called an organ massage, where they basically loosen the fascia, and when
Yeah.
that changed, like my urinary problems went away. My period came back again, full force, normal for for like another 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so all these things that you
Mhm.
have no idea, and then that probably would be like physical stress that was just placed in my organs and my ovaries and everything just being jammed up in a
Wow.
bad way. So I've done the diet. I meditate every day. So I think I've gone through some of and in our previous interview, we talk about all those different things that you can do.
Hmm.
Eat well, meditate, do yoga. Those are
Hmm.
kind of the first
Yeah, the first
first thing,
line.
first
Yeah.
line of defense.
Okay.
I've now done all those things. I've put up. So
But
now
yeah,
what?
but let me just again back up a little bit
Yeah.
because are those the root causes of hormone imbalance, toxicity, stress, diet? Are those the real root causes? And I don't think so. I take it back a step further because what's happening with our diet, from our magnesium talks, the soil is so depleted of minerals and especially magnesium. And the reason I focus on magnesium is because it's performing 700 to 800 different enzyme processes in the body. That's what I came to in this new edition of the Magnesium Miracle. You might have heard me say back in the day, it's 325. Now they're finding more and more and more.
Wow.
The next one in the line of minerals and what they do for the body is zinc at 180 enzyme processes. So magnesium 700 to 800, it is detoxifying. It is helping you get rid of heavy metals. It is balancing your adrenal glands and dealing with stress. So if that happens to be deficient because it's not in the soil anymore, so it's not in our plants, then isn't that more of a root cause?
Right.
And what we know from the U.S. Department of Agriculture is that 100 years ago, we were getting at least 500 milligrams of magnesium in our diet. Now we're lucky to get 200. And I will get patients, clients, customers who will come to me and say, well, I'm on 40 ounces of green drink a day, and I shouldn't have heart palpitations or leg cramps, but I do. I said, well, you do because it's not in the plants, even if they're organic. If your farmer is not putting thousands of pounds of rock dust into the soil, then you're not going to get the minerals. Where's it coming from? So that's my root cause. And it is, well, it's 50% of my root cause. The other root cause of everything is yeast overgrowth. And the toxins from yeast overgrowth. I don't know if we've had an interview about yeast, CJ.
No, we haven't. But let me ask you another question just to loop back of what you're saying. You're talking about zinc. So it's magnesium and zinc, it sounds like, are kind of some minerals that I'm saying.
It really is everything. It truly is everything. I mean, once I worked with, I had heart palpitations and leg cramps, and I get the laxative effect with magnesium. And as you know, I create my own non-laxative magnesium. And it works to be non-laxative because it's 100% absorbed at the cellular level because it's a stabilized ion of magnesium. So once that was in place, I said, okay, I want a multiple mineral. So I have another product, and that's got 12 minerals. What I found out in testing it on myself and, my various people, and this is years ago, that 9 of the minerals in this Remite product support the thyroid. 6 weeks after I was taking my Remite, doing the experiment, I felt the need to get off my Armor Thyroid, 60 milligrams. My hands were all warmed up. My feet were warm. I was kind of a little more excited.
So there was you were taking thyroid medicine, and after you started taking Remite, you didn't have to actually take the thyroid medicine because the minerals were the root cause of the thyroid issue. And so you had said the triangle is adrenal, thyroids,
and sex hormones.
Okay, got it. So those are all the pieces that are going into your hormone imbalance. It could be any of those 3.
Well, I mean, you think about insulin as well. I mean, a lot of people have written books about, well, it's all about insulin. Well, it isn't, but insulin is in there too. And I work on that because I've really gotten involved with the yeast diet, which is like the ketogenic diet. The less carbs you can feed the yeast organisms, the less carbs that stimulate your insulin, the better off you are. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, got it. So the yeast overgrowth so things like I've been trying. I was just asking my nutritionist about this today because everyone's like putting bowls together with brown rice and farro and all those different things. So even though those are whole grains, probably yeast producing still?
The gluten for sure seems to cross-react with yeast. Grains are inflammatory. Everybody kind of should do an experiment where they go off at least the gluten grains and see if they feel better. I
Yeah.
mean, we really don't know. We're making it up as we go along. We are
Right.
practicing all the time, but it has to come back to the individual. In clinical experiments, the number of people in an experiment, they call it an N. The N equal to 1,000
Yeah.
people or
Yeah.
20. You are an N equal to one.
Right.
And your experiment is as valid as any huge experiment out there. In fact, it's more valid because we have no idea the interactions of everything in a person's life that will make them feel better.
Mm. Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that it's more than just the sex hormones in terms of what may be happening to create a hormone imbalance. It's the sex hormones, it's the adrenals, it's the thyroid, and it's the insulin. So it's about taking magnesium. It's about taking mineral or resupplementing the minerals because there's just not enough in the plant sources that we're eating. And that
Right.
it's also about eating less carbs so that we actually don't have the yeast overgrowth. So those are
Right.
kind of like, those are probably easy things. Don't have to go to the doctor. Just start taking magnesium and the
Hmm.
minerals, and you'll be better off than you were. Um,
Absolutely. And better off than most people because most people don't get that. It's common sense to me, but you know how medicine is and drug companies are. They're more about the dollars and cents than they
yeah.
are.
Yeah. Well, it's
And
interesting because I talked to my doctor and she said, what, this is my health coach. And I said, well, she said, what are you taking? And I said, all the supplements. And I said, and I'm taking magnesium. She's like, why are you taking that? I'm like, I'm just taking it. Don't ask me. And I'm going to continue taking it.
why are you taking?
Yeah, yeah.
I
She was like, "Why are you taking that?" I'm like, "I can't even explain. Go listen to this video.
yeah,
You'll
yeah.
understand." But I remember at the time when I did the research, I was convinced, so I don't have to be unconvinced at this point.
Right, right, right,
So
right.
those are some things that you can do. I'm hearing, and
Mhm.
then, um,
But let me just add, I tell everybody to drink enough water to hydrate themselves and to put sea salt in the water.
mhm,
Refined sea salt that has some color to it. If
mhm.
your sea salt is white, it's been refined out of
Mm.
the 72
Oh,
minerals
so
that
get
it's
like the
supposed.
pink kind or whatever.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
a copper color over here in Hawaii. Now, the water guidelines are important too. I
Hmm.
tell people
Yes, I'm gonna
take your
drink
body
some.
weight in pounds and
Hmm.
then drink half of that amount in ounces of water. So 100 pounds, that means 50 ounces.
Hmm.
And in each liter or quart of your drinking water, and work up to this, put a quarter teaspoon of unrefined sea salt. And some people say, oh, I can't stand the taste. But if you start with a pinch, your body craves it after a while. Because look at where our water has gone. If you look on the label of your bottled water,
Hmm.
it will often say reversed osmosis. It can say distilled water.
Mm.
Those waters have zero minerals.
Mm.
The filters on, I have one on my kitchen tap. It's going to filter out everything. So we're left with zero minerals,
Oh.
and it's our water from which we are supposed to get our minerals.
Oh,
You know,
interesting.
the whole cycle of
Uh,
the ice melting in the mountains and then scraping down as the through the tundra and whatever,
right,
and
yeah.
getting to the floodplains. And this muddy, milky water gets to the floodplains and floods the farmland.
Hmm.
And then the plants have the
Uh,
minerals. So what have we
uh,
done? We've made the floodplains into housing projects. We've
mm,
dammed up the rivers, and then we've got
mm,
such chemicals in
uh,
our water. We have to filter it. Even at the processing plants for the big government processing plants, the water's filtered
so
because it.
so if I take the salt, the quarter teaspoon of salt along with each liter that I have, then am I getting the same? Do I need to go get the 12 minerals or is that just sufficient? So that's an addition to it.
Yeah, they're trace in the sea salt. You can
Okay.
imagine, but they start. It's often almost like they open up the doors to the cells because with the process of osmosis, you have a cell there and it wants water and it wants minerals. And you put water in and then that'll drag in minerals. You put minerals in, that'll drag in water. It's like this wonderful synergism.
I
But
see.
the other thing about cells is there are cell mineral ion channels through which the heavier minerals like calcium, etc., goes. Now, this is interesting because magnesium will open up the cell and allow calcium to come in, and calcium causes a muscle firing or a nerve firing. Calcium does the active work. Magnesium kind of relaxes. We
Mm-hmm.
all know that muscles relax with magnesium, but calcium just fires away.
Mm-hmm.
So the firing occurs, and then magnesium out actually kind of drags the calcium back out so that the cell can go back to what we call homeostasis.
Mm.
If you don't have enough magnesium to open and close that cell, calcium gets trapped in there and causes this relentless firing that can result in cell death. But along the way, that's your twitches and your spasms and your nerves, irritation and
Oh.
tingling and numbness. And, when you get nerve symptoms, boom, off to a neurologist, and they're starting to talk about things like MS, for Pete's sakes. And it
Right.
could be just a magnesium deficiency.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so I think what we heard was eat right, take minerals, add some stuff to your water. That's like the first line of defense. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say that I do those things, and then I still want to know about bioidentical hormones. Do you suggest them? Do you not suggest them? So, you made the point of saying whether it's estrogen or bioidentical hormones, they're all drugs. So don't fool yourself in thinking I'm taking, black cohosh or whatever. That's
I,
healthy for me.
I'm curing my condition.
Right.
Yeah, it's what people are led to believe when they take a pill. But let me just mention we haven't talked about yeast detox because the
Okay.
yeast toxins can block hormones.
Oh.
But anyway, I know you focus,
Well, no, but
the
go ahead and
title.
tell me. So what the yeast? So what? But I thought you said the yeast overgrowth. What should I do for yeast then?
Starve it.
Eating less carbs, right?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. I
Okay.
mean, there's more to that, but just so people know, I mean, there are studies, research, doctors looking at the cross reactivity of yeast toxins with thyroid tissue, adrenal tissue, ovaries. I mean,
Mm,
there is a body of information about that, but no one's really talking about it because there's no drug that can treat it.
okay. So
So
so now I have one more thing. Electrolytes, or sorry. Wait, what are electrolytes? That was another question. So someone gave me a little bottle and they're like, drink some of this and put this in your water. Is electrolytes the same thing as minerals? What are
yeah,
electrolytes? Okay.
they are minerals. And people know electrolytes maybe when they get an electrolyte panel on a blood test.
Mm-hmm.
And the main ones are calcium, sodium, chloride, potassium.
Mm-hmm.
They never test for magnesium. It's horrifying.
So if that someone, my nutritionist said, go take this electrolyte thing and add it to each of your water. And the first time I was like, oh my God, it tastes awful. And then
Yeah.
after, like you're saying, it tasted super salty. And then after a while, it just didn't taste it like
Yeah.
anything at all.
Right.
So
Right.
is that the in replacement to the minerals that you take, or is that enough minerals in terms of calcium, sodium, potassium, or should you be taking more? Because you said you have 12 in your
Right. It's
mix.
usually there's a lack of balance in most of the electrolytes out there because they really don't put enough magnesium in.
Mm,
A lot of the athletic electrolytes like Gatorade,
mm-hmm.
they're very high in sodium. And in order to stop sort of the
Mm.
salty bitterness of that, they put in a lot of sugar. So
Um,
you've got tremendous amounts of sugar. All these athletes, heaven forbid, drinking 2 and 3 Gatorades a day are going to develop diabetes.
oh
There's just no
gosh.
question about it. So most of the electrolytes, look at the labels, you'll see sodium is the top one. And then you see a lot of sugar for the taste.
Mm,
And then you might see calcium, which you really do have to have as much magnesium as calcium, but magnesium, because it's not tested in the blood and people have ignored it forever, they continue to ignore it
Okay.
to our detriment.
Okay, got it. So you have two products. You have Remite and then the magnesium product that you sell, which is kind of the one is fully digestible, and then you also have the Remite that has all the 12 minerals that you're
Right.
recommending that you should take. In addition, you would want to take salt. In addition, you want to eat less carbs. In
Hmm.
addition to that, um, you know, de-stress, eat healthy, lots of vegetables, things like that. Those are kind of those are the first line of defense before you do bioidentical hormones or anything like that.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to bioidentical hormones. So what do things like these natural supplements like Estroven, like they talk about black coash, they have a whole bunch of stuff in it. What is it that it's actually doing?
Well, there are phytoestrogens. I know just Pueria, I think that's how you pronounce it,
Mm-hmm.
in the estrogen, and there's black cohosh, and there was another one, chasteberry.
Mm-hmm.
And they're phytoestrogens. So they're going to supposedly mimic estrogen in the body. Um,
Oh, okay.
Wild yam is in there too. And what's interesting about the bioidentical hormones is they will extract the hormone precursor that is in wild yam, and then they'll chemically make the bioidentical hormones from that. So it's not, when people say bioidentical hormones, it's not that they're taking some poor women and extracting their
Like the
hormones.
big things of yam on a big
I'm,
stove,
it's,
stirring
yeah,
around. That's
yeah,
not what's happening.
yeah. It is
Okay.
still having to be chemically altered, etc. And we don't even know if it's safer, the bioidentical plant derived, either from wild yam or from soy. We don't know if it's safer. The studies haven't been done. When we medical research discovered, what was it? It's going back 20 years ago, they finally produced the studies that showed that women who were on estrogen therapy were developing cancers.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have been more like 30 years ago, but it took another 10 years for it to become more common knowledge. And what did they do? And instead of just pulling estrogen, they said, well, maybe it's because there's not enough progesterone. So they started giving women synthetic progesterone. And
Mm-hmm.
another 10 years passed, and nope, that didn't work. So then they started pulling estrogen away from women. The gynecologists did, because they were afraid of causing cancer. Who wouldn't be?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, I never really prescribed the stuff. I was
Right.
big on PMS and realized that it was a lack of progesterone, and maybe if we gave women natural progesterone, then that would help balance them out, and it
Right.
did.
Right.
So I'm not for bioidentical or synthetic, but I use bioidentical hormones myself. I use tiny little bits of a combination of estrogen and progesterone. I used to use a little testosterone in there, but I'm already too too aggressive. So I,
Okay. All right. So
uh,
what is it that you're using? What is it that you're using?
I use what is it, triestrogen, it's
Mm-hmm.
called in the bioidentical world. It has some estradiol, some estrone, and some estriol. That estrone is E1, estradiol is E2, estriol is E3. Now, what we have done in North America, or maybe in the West, we have elevated estradiol to the position of importance for dealing with menopause symptoms because it's the strongest.
Mm-hmm.
It's also the most carcinogenic.
Okay.
And apparently in Europe, they use more estriol,
Mm-hmm.
the
The E1
E3
or E3.
E1, yeah, E3 triol, estriol, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they use estrone as well.
Right.
So the bioidentical people, they say, well, maybe if we balance out the estradiol with some estriol and estrone, that's why they call it a triestrogen.
Okay.
Maybe that'll be more beneficial. And to that, I add progesterone. Now, what I do specifically, CJ, is I get a cream combination of those three, and I use it vaginally.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Sorry, a cream combination of the E2, E1, and E3, and then also the progesterone, and you use it vaginally. Okay.
right. And where the dosage says, it comes up, you rotate it, it says uh, 2 or 3 turns every day. I'll use like half a turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like use as little as possible. Now, just recently, it's interesting. For some reason, I started turning the thing the full way.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, I started getting sensitivity on the side of my breasts and too much estrogen. So
Mm-hmm.
I've stopped it until that sensitivity goes away, and
Right.
I will use it, and then I'll be more careful about just using half a dose.
Wow, interesting. Okay, got it. So the name of
So
the is there
it's
the products
yeah.
that you use are bioidentical, and how long have you been using it for? Like when is it when do you start? There have been lots of studies. A recent one that said in their 50s you want to start taking, and in fact, my current doctor, I was talking to her about when to start. And she said that the research that was done in that Women's Health Initiative in 2012 had said something about if you start from age 50, like you don't want it to be on hormone replacement for more than 5 years, and you don't want to go on beyond age 60. So her
Mhm.
recommendation, and I'm 55, so it's like, okay, be on it for 5 years and then get off it and wind off it as 60. So do you have a sense of when is the ideal time to start and how long you should be on it? Because um, can I tell you your birthday, your age?
Okay.
Well, you've been on it for how long? You don't have to say your age. You can just tell
Oh
me how
no,
long have
no,
you been aged.
I'm fine. It's just, yeah, I'm 69,
Okay, and you look
and
great,
I
so I think it's
think,
great to say.
yeah, right, right. My husband doesn't mind. He thinks it's a badge of honor
Yeah.
that, but anyway, and we've been together, my husband and I, for 52 years. So,
Wow.
sometimes we have
Wow.
to mention my age because they say, where were you in the crib?
Yep.
So with the timing of mine, I have probably been taking them for, um, maybe 18, 20 years.
Okay.
But I don't believe, okay, where this timing business is coming in is if people, okay, take the full dose, but only take it for 5 years because it's too much. Well,
Um,
what if I'm 50 and I have no symptoms? Should I take it? No. This is the type of thing you take for symptoms. I had such horrible hot flashes. I couldn't function.
I see. So you take like I take the I tried like half of the dose and see if like my hot flashes are gone and my
Right,
symptoms are gone. Then I'm like,
right.
great. So then there was another study that I read. As I said, I'm getting confused because there's so many things out there that a friend of mine in Santa Barbara suggested go see this person, and I read through all of her materials, and it was the idea of you need to get E2 and E4 in balance because there's a whole bunch of metabolic, processes that are
Mm,
dependent on it. So when you correct that, you're going to have like all these other ancillary benefits. So if you look at the cost of the potentiality of getting cancer, which, if you have all these things that are genetically, you're predisposed, and don't go down this path. But if you don't have
mhm,
those things, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, all these things, and then you have to evaluate the cost of taking those hormones, which is cancer, versus the benefits, which is the, um, uh, heart health, bone density.
mhm.
Um, uh, you can probably list them better than I
Yeah,
do, but
yeah.
there are all these benefits, right? So,
Right,
is
right.
do you see it that way?
No. I really don't because we really have to individualize that type of approach. And when I've been around for a long time doing medicine, and
Right.
I've gone through doing the saliva testing and the urine testing, and Anybody who's taking any hormones, the testing is going to be off. And then how do you interpret your saliva and your urine when you're taking a certain amount? And how do you know how much you're metabolizing? There is no answer. And that's what medicine is scrambling, even alternative
Mm,
medicine. They're scrambling to find the answer for everybody, and they never will. They really have to individualize.
mm.
I I'll use this experiment, and I do this periodically. I'll go off my vaginal estrogen progesterone cream until I see if I develop hot flashes. Maybe I won't. But if
So if you
you,
don't, you're like, okay, everything's fine.
yeah. And then if I develop hot flashes, I'll just use a tiny amount. I mean, all we can do is experiment on ourselves. And it is hard for people to get that message. I know with my customers, I'm asking that of them all the time.
Hmm.
Take take this, the Remag magnesium. If you feel better, take more. And
Right.
it's
And if you feel
something
worse, take less.
less. Yes,
Okay, so there's
please.
well, so in this gal's work, she the one who said like there are a whole bunch of other benefits if you take estrogen and progesterone to your bone density, blah blah blah, all these different things. Are those things? Is that true? If you take estrogen, if you take progesterone,
Well,
she said it affects the
yeah,
metabolic processes, and if it does affect your metabolism, then it will affect all these different
yeah.
things. Is it?
Well, yeah, it sounds good.
Yeah.
The words sound good, but when they did studies on men and gave them estrogen to see if it would help their bones, it was horrible. I
Hmm.
mean, it did not work.
Hmm.
We don't know if any of these things are truly across the board. And what I go back to, well, our bodies are made to last, I do believe, at least 120 years.
Hmm.
So why all of a sudden are our bodies going to give up on us at menopause just because we don't want to produce offspring anymore? That's all
Hmm.
that we're doing is
Hmm.
shutting down our ability to produce offspring.
Hmm.
And studies about osteoporosis, for example, they go crazy doing the bone scans and saying, well, your bones are deteriorating. Well,
Hmm.
for the most part, they're comparing them to 30-year-old bones. I
Hmm.
don't need to have 30-year-old bones.
Hmm.
And when they look at indigenous people, apparently, and I keep trying to find this study that I think I read 20 years ago. They did a study in South America where they took the bone density of these young women who were carrying the huge, you know,
Bowls on
what
their heads, yeah. So they're
bones on their head.
compacting, should have
Yeah.
pretty dense bones, right?
Right. And then 20 years later, they went back, probably not the same women, but they looked at an older generation, and they did have less bone, but their muscles were strong, their tendons were strong. They were
Mm,
still upright and doing their work because
mm,
everything was working synergistically.
mm,
But in our world, I cannot tell you how many women, as they approach my age and maybe in their 50s and 60s, they start getting these bone density tests, and they are just slayed. They are so distraught because they're told, well, your bones are too thin, you have to take drugs.
mm-hmm.
These are accomplished women that are doing exercise, they
Well,
feel
my
great.
mom is on that Flonase or whatever it's called.
uh,
Flosinoff. I can't remember. It's something with an F and an L.
right.
So she's on that bone density medicine.
Fosamax.
Flossamax.
Fosamax, yeah. And what does
Yeah.
that do? It stops the osteoblasts from breaking down bone. And you think, okay, yeah, we don't want to break down bone. But the osteoblasts also remodel bone.
Mm,
When minerals come into the bone, they remodel it and make it strong and make it work in a lattice.
mm-hmm.
When you stop the osteoblast from doing that, everything just gets all crumbly and brittle, and your bones break worse than without the Fosamax. Dentists will not work on the jaws of women who take Fosamax because their jawbones deteriorate so badly.
Right. Wow. Okay. So All right. So you still, though, you've been for the last 20 years, you've been taking progesterone and a cream, this vaginal cream and this triestrogen.
Right.
So um, why? And you're taking it because of you have symptoms. So if you don't take it, you'll start feeling symptoms. So you're just trying to take the bare minimum that you need in order for the symptoms not to occur. You're not
Right.
worrying about this other doctors if you have to cycle so that it mirrors the identical cycle of your estrogen and progesterone during your whole menstrual cycle. So your estrogen
Mm.
does gradually. So you should be monitoring that. You have the same amount that you put in every day, or do
Mhm.
you cycle it? Because I know, and if you look at a menstrual cycle, there's estrogen and then progesterone kicks in the latter part of the cycle. So you're like, whatever. So
No,
I'm just going to put it
no.
all in there.
And I might do it 5 days out of 7, but actually, CJ, this is going to be interesting because I haven't come off it for years, and it may just be that the way I've built up my body on my minerals, and I also have a methylated B vitamin with a couple of amino acids, and all that may balance me out so that I don't need the hormones anymore. I don't know. And I don't really mind using them because I know I'm using low dose. I'm very responsible about my body, and it's more important to me to not have vaginal atrophy and to be able to have intercourse rather than shriveling up and acting like I'm an old lady.
Right. So is that why you chose the vaginal? Because there's some
Yes,
things,
yes,
there's like transdermal patches that you can put on. There's different
yeah.
creams. Do you do vaginal because it actually helps with both the vaginal atrophy and then also the same benefits of delivering the minimal amount of the drug without being processed? Is that why you
Yeah,
use the?
it's better absorption through the mucous membranes of the vagina than on your skin, for Pete's sakes.
Okay, got it. So you have to actually
Mm,
use even less. If you put it in your vaginal area, you have to use less. And if I were to
even
put a
less.
patch on my stomach,
I know.
oh, interesting. So really, if you want to use the very least amount of progesterone and estrogen, you want to actually use it vaginally.
I would
Okay,
say so. Yeah.
okay. And then it sounds like, is it like a little squirt, like a turkey baster, kind of like a inject? What
No,
is it?
no, I should have brought it up, but you just twist the bottom of a container, and at the top, a little
Bead
tiny
comes out. Yeah, like your face
bead comes
lotion.
out.
Like when you do a
Yeah.
little face lotion, you put your eye
And
cream on. Same thing.
yeah, with your very own personal finger, you just insert it. That's
And
all.
that's it. And it's
That's,
not greasy or sticky or
no,
okay.
no, no, no. I
Okay.
mean, not the one I get, and I'm not going to be able to tell people where they can get it because I think it goes state by state now. It used to be that there were a couple of bioidentical hormone pharmacies in
Mhm.
different states, and you
Mhm.
could get your doctor to write a prescription for another state. But the apparently the FDA is trying to cut back on bioidenticals because it interferes with the drug companies.
Right. Yeah.
So
So let me
that's
ask you, so the transdermal patch, if you use that, does that also help with vaginal atrophy or no?
it probably does, but see, there's where you probably have to use high amounts to get it to the vaginal tissues.
Ah.
It's like you have to saturate your whole
Uh,
body and it
right.
falls down into your vagina. I don't know for sure,
Okay.
but
Got it. So
that's what I see in the dosing schedules.
okay, got it. So in terms of the ideal age to start, I'm hearing you say your answer is start when you have symptoms. If you don't have symptoms, don't
Hmm.
start. When should you end? Try to. What I'm hearing you do is that you basically scale off it and see like, oh, here comes a hot flash, and then you're
Hmm.
kind of figuring out your dosing based on your actual symptoms.
Yeah.
And then bioidentical hormones and synthetic hormones. And the thing that I heard you say is bioidentical hormones are don't imagine some woman stirring yams on, this is not the equivalent. This is also synthesized. It's also synthesized. So even though it's called bioidentical,
Hmm.
it's not, it's the same as synthetic pills that you would be taking. Is that right?
It seems to be chemically. they extract something called diosgenin. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that improperly. And then they will make a progesterone chemical out of it. And then with that progesterone, start making the other hormones. So
Mm.
it seems to me they're just looking for the chemical.
Right. Yeah, but they're trying to get something that has. When I read through the research, you're saying, and in your own book, you're saying that if you're going to do, you want to use something that has a similar kind of chemical structure that is easy for your body to digest, which is bioidentical versus synthetic. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly how to say it properly because there are certain chemicals that rotate differently.
Mm-hmm.
There's levo and dextro rotation. I don't really see that in the hormones. So I think if you get this yam isolate and then you add things to it to make the other hormones, it's the same chemical structure as if you make the hormones from coal tar derivatives, because that's where most things come from in the pharmaceutical industry is carbon-based chemicals.
Right. But there's ones that are like, but then there are ones that are made out of horse. Your
Oh yeah,
That's
that was
different.
yeah the Premarin.
Premarin, yeah.
Premarin was the that was maybe one of the first hormones, and it was the estrogens from horse urine.
Right.
And that's where I said earlier, you're not going to be squeezing estrogen out of women and then giving it as a pill.
Right.
You'll never get natural. And then with the horse urine, that's where they did the research over the years and showed that, well, no, that's too much estrogen, it's too strong, and women are getting cancer.
Right. So that's why you want to use ones. So whether it's synthetic or bioidentical, it sounds like they're both in some way synthetic, but you want to
Mhm.
use that versus the horse urine one.
Oh, yes, yes. I
Okay,
don't
because
even know if Premarin's around
even
in your
selling, I don't
research.
even know. I can't even tell.
Yeah.
I just know that it's mentioned as what not to get. And
Uh-huh.
so how does someone get bioidentical hormones? I mean, how did like this cream, this triesterone cream and the progesterone, how does one go? Do you go to a naturopath or where do you go and how do you make sure you have a reputable one and all that?
I know. I mean, this is what's tough, and this is where women really need to get together and share information about where they're getting their bioidenticals, if they're working. Some states naturopaths can prescribe, and they will often kind of have an association with the pharmacy because any pharmacist can get the ingredients to make bioidentical hormones. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not rocket science.
Right. Right.
The base ingredients are out there.
Right.
So I think some of them are concerned because the FDA is so against bioidenticals that there's a big fight on now. There's a war about women being able to access these hormones, and I'm going to keep getting bioidenticals. I hope I don't have to go to synthetic, but it's just sort of a thought that I have that they're probably safer. But as I said earlier, we don't even know that. I think what happens with the synthetics, and when you read the list of ingredients, they have so many other things in them. It's
Mm-hmm.
just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible the amount of potential contaminants or
Ah,
irritants.
okay. So it's not the E1, E2, E3. It's not that. It's a whole bunch of other stuff in there.
Yes,
Ah, okay, got
yes,
it.
yes,
That's
yes,
why
yes,
you're like,
yes, yes.
not sure if I gotta
Right.
believe this the stuff that gives you the stuff you need and just the stuff you need is all you need. Okay,
Right.
so I think I got so there's no research. I mean, from what I saw, there was research that's like, no one knows about bioidenticals. And then it's like, no, there has been some research that hormones are good. No, hormones are bad. Don't take
Right.
any. Oh, nothing has been proven. So it's just,
Hmm.
that research was 2011. Then I saw something in NPR that says it helps with dementia. So, I mean, I really, who knows?
Mm,
Okay. So, so the one thing that all of the different books talk about is getting tests. So we talked about urine testing, saliva testing, blood testing, and what I'm hearing you say is that doesn't really tell you how you're metabolizing these, so it doesn't
No.
really, the levels, like if it says you're E2 or P4 or whatever levels are at this level, does it say anything to you, or is it like, what is it really telling you,
It's
these
very
tests?
it's very hard to know. Jonathan Wright, he's the grand master of alternative medicine. He's a
Yeah.
medical doctor, and in Jonathan's lab, he started doing I guess, a 24-hour urine analysis, and he parsed it down to all the downstream metabolites of what's forming what, and he was trying to get to the answer. And I
Right.
don't know how that turned out. I know I did a couple of tests with patients, and it was just too complicated for me.
Right.
And around that same time, I was doing analysis where a lab would look at your amino acids as well as your hormones. And they
Right.
thought, well, that will be the answer. And really, I have such a jaundiced view of testing now that I just step back and say, the two things in my world on root cause are mineral deficiencies and yeast overgrowth. Treat those up, saturate yourself with your minerals, get rid of your yeast, and see what's left.
Right.
If there's stuff left over, then you start testing. But otherwise, I mean, it's as with leaky gut. If you have yeast irritating your gut, it's going to be leaky. And if you do allergy tests, every food you eat is going to be improperly digested. Some of the molecules are going to be absorbed through your gut wall, and you're going to look like you're allergic to everything, which totally freaks
Mm,
people out.
right.
So, try to work with these things and heal them up. There's so much to be said. And
Yeah.
then what's going on? They're doing genetic testing now. And you mentioned about, well, if you have risk for breast cancer, maybe the genetic testing will help keep some people away from hormones if they have that predisposition.
Right.
But the genetic testing to me is the scariest thing in the world
How come?
because they're they're coming up with, oh, these are your top 100 genetic, well, I call them variabilities. They
Right.
call them genetic errors.
Right.
And they make people think that it's completely impossible for me to deal with 100 different genetic errors. So I might as well just shoot myself right now.
Oh, I see. Well, it's funny because I actually am doing one where I have had genetic testing through a
Hmm.
local group, Lee Hood, from Arivel, who is the guy from systems biology, who's mapping the genome, et cetera, et cetera. So he's looking at health and whether there's preventative measures that you can take. So he looks at, so for example, I did mine and it looked at a panel of like all my different markers. And for me, heart health is the biggest thing, and fat. If you actually look at my genetics, that's the one where
Uh,
if I got to look at anything, it's like, try to minimize eating red meat and fat. Like I'm all the other things that you said are true, but like if there's one
mhm.
that's a gotcha. And
And
so I actually think
what's your,
it's good. I mean, it's helpful because for me, I think it's useful, but
right.
yes, your question. Now you're going to ask me questions? Oh,
Yeah.
Lord. Okay.
What's your blood type?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I have to go check. I can't remember. I
Yeah,
should have known.
I am interested in the genetic testing. I'll probably get it done myself.
I'll show you my panel. I'll give you my password. I'll give you
Mhm.
my passport, and you can actually look at. I'll show you the test. It's very interesting, actually. It's been
Right.
super interesting for me. And
Right.
minimally, whether I'm doing something or not, minimally, I've lost weight just from eating less fat. I feel better. I feel way,
Right.
way better
Right.
than I
Right.
used to. So I know that there's
And
some positive effects.
sure, and you take your magnesium, and that's the
I
most
do.
important thing for heart health. So
Yep.
that's good.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm just concerned because I spend a lot of my time taking people off dozens and dozens
Of
of
medicines.
supplements that
Yeah.
aren't working.
Mm.
People come to us and say, I've got these 20 symptoms, and then they're taking 30 or 40 supplements.
Mm.
And I say, okay. I don't say it in the beginning. I tell people, look, just start taking some minerals and some some of the methylated Bs and see how you feel. And as you're feeling better, you may not need all these supplements because look what you came in with.
Mm.
All these symptoms, taking all these supplements, were they helping? And what's happening to folks is they're on so many supplements that they could be cross-reacting. Who knows what's going on, giving the body so many different directives. And one of the major things is everybody's hot on antioxidant supplements. Our body oxidizes biochemically. That's how we create a lot of proteins and different structure and functional components of our body. It's through oxidation. If we're slathering ourselves with antioxidants, are we stopping natural oxidation? I think so. So I really am cautioning people about taking too many supplements.
So there's actually supplements for antioxidants? I've
Oh
never
yeah,
seen
well,
that.
you hear that. Well, you've heard them. Resveratrol,
Yeah, I've
alpha
never taken them.
lipoic acid, and acetylcysteine. They're all advertised as antioxidants.
So for example, so one of the things that I'm trying to decide is, well, should I take Estroven, which is like FDA approved? It's sold on Amazon. I don't know if it's FDA approved. I shouldn't say that, but it's sold on Amazon. It's that thing that has black coash, blah blah blah, all these other
Yeah.
things in it. Is that any different than taking a bioidentical hormone? Because from now, what I'm hearing you say is like, what's the diff? You might as well just take the biomedical hormone, and because that actually helps with the vaginal atrophy and all these
Yeah,
other
yeah,
things. Like,
yeah, yeah.
if there isn't any difference between those things, and they're both
Right.
kind of like, you might as well just take the one that has the most benefits.
Benefit. Well, I would go with Estroven first. I think when I started my vaginal hormones, there wasn't a good all-round supplement.
Right.
My premise is do the minerals, do the detox, do the stress release, then take your estrogen. If that's not enough, do the vaginal bioidentical. I
Right.
mean, it should be down, what incremental rather than just diving for hormone replacement right off the bat,
Oh,
which
I
is
see what
what
you're
we're
saying.
trained to do medically is suppress the symptoms, don't even bother with root cause or looking for a cure.
But you would actually do the natural supplements, even though you started off by saying it's all the same thing.
No, it's not synthetic and bioidentical, I think are the same thing, but the plant phytoestrogens are safer.
Okay, got it. So you're saying go that route. If that
Right,
works, then just be done with it. Don't have to
right,
worry about these
right,
things.
right, 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 right.
Okay. It's so confusing.
No, it's not. No,
I
don't
know,
say
no,
that.
no, I know. What's confusing is the information out there, right? That this one analysis that I read that's like you've got to take hormones and it's for the rest of your life, and it's like okay,
Well, that didn't turn out so good for the people back in the 50s who when they discovered Premarin and gave it to women and they just, lit up like light bulbs and then they got cancer. We really have to be careful of adding hormones to your body.
okay. This has been extremely helpful. Thank you so much. And tell us your website. So, if people they can you ship anywhere, right? So people can buy your products. And if they're
And
like, and I heard a couple of things that were like, oh, I don't want to actually buy her products. So she's like, just plug in her products. Is there other
yeah,
products that you would recommend aside
no.
from yours? No.
No, no. I mean, it is. Of course, I've heard that, and it's really sad because we're in a capitalist economy. When somebody makes a discovery like I have and wants to promote it, then I'll just promote it, and people can do their own research. But yeah, for someone to say, "Well, I'm not buying something because she's going to make money off it,"
Right.
then that's just what is it? Cutting off their nose to spite their face.
Right. Right.
There's so much evidence behind what minerals can do for the body read the Magnesium Miracle book. My website, drcarolyndean.com. I've got blogs. You'll eventually be able to progress to my online store website. The FDA makes us put up a little barrier between the two, like a little
Oh,
diaper.
right.
So
That makes sense.
yeah.
That makes
And
sense.
a website with a lot of free ebooks. I give a lot of information away for free.
Right.
Uh-oh, I'm falling apart here. And I have a radio show too, where it's a 2-hour call-in radio show where people can talk to me,
Oh,
and you can
perfect.
call in and yell at me and say, "Well, you shouldn't be making money off this." Well, then I tell people, and I haven't told people this, CJ, but it's like, well, you go ahead and quit your job and give all your money to charity if you think
Right.
that's the way the world should work.
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
but are there other products that you would recommend aside from yours? I mean, are there, like, if I went and took like a mineral supplement that I get from
Oh, of
Costco,
course.
what?
Right. Well, yeah, of course. In my Magnesium Miracle book, I say, look, do Epsom salt baths to
Hmm.
start with your estrogen saturation, and do magnesium citrate powders.
Hmm.
Put that in water and sip it through the day,
Hmm.
and that has a less laxative effect. And then I do go to my third one, which is Remag. I used to talk about the dozen different magnesium formulas, but they're all kind of making claims, but the research isn't there to show that any of them are any better than maybe 20% absorbed.
I see.
So what I've done is gone to 100% absorption and tell people, well, you can take any other magnesium up to the point that you get the laxative effect. And if you still have your symptoms, then you can move to my magnesium.
Right.
And a lot of people will do just fine with different magnesiums. The main ones are magnesium citrate and magnesium glycinate.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think after I talked to you, I actually found one on Amazon that is fine. Like I don't have like it has a laxative effect, but I appreciate the laxative effect. So it's actually a
Right,
good thing. And that not a
right,
laxative, but it's actually makes everything go easier. And
right.
then so for minerals, are there like can you just take any 12 minerals or is it
Now that's a difficult one. It's very difficult because most minerals are very poorly absorbed. We
mm,
haven't even talked about calcium. Most calciums are only about 4% absorbed.
wow.
And then the rest of it ends up causing constipation, the opposite of magnesium.
Oh,
Magnesium kind of saves itself. I call it the fail safe of diarrhea,
right.
where, if you take too much at once, it comes through you, but calcium builds up. And there's
Mm,
many studies now that show women who simply just swallow these calcium pills are at higher risk for heart disease, gallstones, kidney stones, breast
mm,
tissue calcifications, which is
wow.
scary
Yeah.
because you get misdiagnosed with something
Mm,
called DCIS. So calcium is not your friend. It
right.
really isn't.
Yeah. So you're saying that if you take your version of it, it will kind of balance the calcium with those other things. Okay.
Right,
So it
right.
actually is minerals and is calcium a mineral?
Oh, yeah, calcium's a mineral. But,
Okay.
CJ, what I realized is most people can get enough calcium from their diet.
Mm,
And that's because we only probably need about 600 milligrams.
mm-hmm.
That's what they do in the UK. The World Health Organization says 600 milligrams. But here in the US, the RDA is like 1200 to 1500. It's
Mm.
way too much, especially because it's not absorbed.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah. I don't even drink calcium anymore. I don't drink regular milk, so I get it through supplements that come through soy milk. I'm drinking soy milk that has
Right,
some
right,
type
right,
of calcium supplement in it.
right, right, right.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so how do people get to your website if they want to buy some of these products and to get books and resources? And your 2 hour, because I had so many people comment on your video, and I didn't know that you had a 2 hour radio station, or radio show, so
Sure.
they can ask questions there.
Right, right. Okay, well, three websites, drcarolyndean.com
Okay.
with the books, free books, and radio show archives, drcarolyndeanlive.com. online store, rnareset.com.
Okay, that's the online store, rnaset.recom.
rnareset.com.
rnareset.com, Dr.
Right.
Carolyn live.com, and Dr. Carolyn Dean
Dean
live.com, Dr.
and
Carolyn Dean
.com.
.com, and the live.com is for your
Books and radio show.
Okay, got it. So if I want
Free.
to ask you some questions, like I have a question about magnesium and how much I should take, then I can actually go to the radio show and call in.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
got
Yep.
it.
And
Okay,
my
perfect.
customer service on rnareset.com. We have 8 customer service people.
Wow. Okay.
8.
Okay.
Because we get so many questions about just, well, everything. But our customer service is there 24/7.
Right.
So you can ask questions, email, phone. We get back to people on the phone. And
Right.
on the radio show, people can chat in or phone in. So
Perfect. Excellent.
tons of access, because I know it is really all about education. And
Right.
I've been around long enough that I have a lot of answers, and I'm
Yeah.
just happy to share.
Thank you so much for sharing with us all these different things that we can try before bioidentical hormones. I think it's very confusing. So I think this helped coming up with the root cause as well as some other things to try before actually putting more chemicals in your body.
Right.
Yeah. Excellent.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, and aloha, CJ. You're doing great work.